Y'all, welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank with Spencer Keck. I am the educated hillbilly, and no, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and the Long Hunters on their search for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that search, that quest, still alive today. So I'm Spencer Keck, retired Navy doc, combat veteran, and candidate for magistrate on the Hardin County Fiscal Court, District 3, here in Hardin County, Kentucky. I'm also a public school teacher. And I'll tell you up front, today's episode is personal, right down to the marrow. And don't forget, today is the 250th anniversary. Actually, it's even longer than that, but yeah, 250th anniversary of when the Declaration of Independence was read aloud for the first time to the public. So those words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, written together for the first time, they were heard 250 years ago. So here's where we are. Trump is standing in Ankara, Turkey, at a NATO summit, threatening to cut off trade with Spain, a NATO ally, because they wouldn't rubber stamp his defense spending demands. He's telling the Danish prime minister he still wants Greenland and pulling US troops out of Europe over that issue. He declared the Iran ceasefire over after new strikes flew in both directions. And in the middle of all that, he's praising Turkey and talking about handing them F-35s back. Meanwhile, back home, the Epstein files are still not fully out. The housing bill he said he supported a month ago is sitting unsigned on his desk. Veterans are staring down a bill that dangles new benefits in one hand while quietly cutting tinnitus and sleep apnea compensation with the other. And Mitch McConnell has been in a hospital for over 3 weeks with no real explanation from his own office. We still have troops in the streets, also, if you didn't know that. And big cities around this land. One of them is Memphis. And soldiers shot a U.S. citizen in Memphis. National Guard soldiers shot a 20-year-old man, Tyron Johnson, on Sunday. That's going to be the show today. So it is time. Let's get down into it. And we got a lot of stuff we need to sort out. So buckle up, hang on. You're in for a ride.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come.
All right, y'all. So Let's dig in. Let's start off with the NATO circus, segment 1. Start with the headline. Trump called Spain a wasted cause and a terrible partner, and told Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent he wants to cut off trade with them. Here we go again. Why? Because Spain wouldn't back the U.S. on Iran and previously refused to commit his 5% gross domestic product defense spending target. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Spain doesn't set its own trade policy. The European Union does. That'd be like someone saying, hey, we're going to cut off trade with Kentucky. If Spain told us that, we'd be like, because Spain wanted Kentucky to do something. We'd be like, hey, we're a state in many states in a nation. Same thing with the European Union. The European Union, every European country, state is now part of the European Union, just like it's the United States. It's the United Europe Union. And apparently, our commander-in-chief does not understand that. So this is either a president who doesn't understand how the European Union works, or one who doesn't care. He's just saying it out loud in front of cameras at a military alliance summit. Then there's Greenland again. Can you believe it? He's telling Denmark's prime minister, a NATO ally, that he wants their territory and dangling a U.S. troop withdrawal from Europe if he does not get his petulant way. Mette Frederiksen's response was about as blunt as diplomacy gets. Greenland is not for sale, and NATO allies need to stick together. And then, almost as an aside, he decided the Iran ceasefire is over. Iran says it hit 85 U.S. sites in Kuwait and Bahrain. CENTCOM says the U.S. hit back at more than 80 targets after Iran attacked commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices jumped nearly 6% overnight. This is not a stable moment, and the president is spending his time at the summit picking fights with allies instead. Oh, and Turkey gets the opposite treatment. Sanctions relief, and maybe F-35s back on the table, which Greece and other allies are not thrilled about at all. All right, so here's my take. I need to tell you why the troop withdrawal talks land different for me than it might for some pundit who's never worn the uniform. I was the first hospital corpsman into Afghanistan with the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations capable right after September 11th. I earned my second combat action ribbon on that deployment. Before that, I was in the first Gulf War. I know exactly what it costs to put Americans in harm's way, and exactly what it costs to pull the rug right out from under an alliance mid-fight. You don't threaten to yank troops out of Europe as a bargaining chip over Greenland. Alliances that get built in blood don't get spent just like poker chips. You can call this a lot of things. Deranged is one of them, but strip away the theatrics, and what you actually see is a president who treats alliances like leverage in a business negotiation. Threaten the partner, praise the rival, and see who blinks. The problem is these aren't vendors. They're the backbone of a 76-year-old military alliance in the middle of an actual shooting conflict with Iran. Segment 2. Still no Epstein files. While all that's happening overseas, back home, the promised full release of the Jeff Epstein files is still not a reality. A federal judge ordered the Department of Justice to either release more unredacted material by July 2nd or explain in court why it can't. The Department of Justice has said it will appeal. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has argued the department already complied with the law, even as it continues withholding millions of pages. This isn't a small technical dispute. The redacted material reportedly includes names and emails discussing underage girls and FBI interview notes tied to an uncorroborated allegation involving Trump himself from decades ago. Whatever you think the truth turns out to be, we said we'd release it all and then didn't, is its own story. Now, I didn't spend 24 years in the Navy and another stretch working for the VA and for USCIS to come home and shrug at a government that says one thing and does another. I believe the Constitution is the highest law of the land, full stop. Rule of ethical law, that isn't a slogan for me. It's the standard I held myself to in uniform and the standard I held federal agencies to when I worked right inside two of them. A court orders disclosure, and the department's answer is, we'll appeal? That's not how rule of law is supposed to work for a president or for anybody else. Segment 3, affordability and the housing bill he won't sign. Now here's one that should make people furious regardless of party. Congress actually did something. The 21st Century Road, ROAD, to Housing Act passed the Senate 85-5 and the House 358-32. That's about as bipartisan as it gets in this Congress. It's aimed at housing supply, cutting red tape, funding for manufactured housing, limits on institutional investors buying up single-family homes. Trump was supposed to sign it. He canceled the signing less than 2 hours before it was scheduled, saying he wants the Save America Act, a voter ID bill, passed first. He called the housing bill of minor importance compared to that. The housing bill becomes law without his signature after 10 days anyway. So this is mostly theater, but it's theater that tells you exactly where affordability ranks on his actual priority list versus how much he talks about it. Now, y'all, I've seen this from both sides of it now. I spent years in the Veterans Administration watching veterans try to stretch a fixed disability check to cover rent. Then I used Kentucky's Troops to Teachers program and became a certified public school teacher and spent 2 years in Hardin County classrooms and more now in JCPS, watching families and fellow teachers do the exact same math on a teacher's salary. Housing supply isn't an abstraction to me. It's why a young family in Hardin County can't find a starter home. And it's why I'm running for magistrate on the fiscal court, because these are the decisions that actually touch people's kitchen tables. A bill 358 members of the House could agree on getting treated as minor. That tells you where you rank. Segment 4, the Veterans Bill's poison pill. Now, again, this one's personal for a lot of listeners. So it's personal for me too. I retired from the Navy on October 31st, 2014, after 24 years as an independent duty hospital corpsman, Fleet Marine Force qualified corpsman, surface warfare qualified sailor. Then I went and worked at the VA from 2015 to 2019, and again from 2020 to 2021. I've sat on both sides of that counter. The guy in the uniform getting hurt, and the guy behind the desk processing the claim afterward. I know what a tinnitus rating and a sleep apnea rating actually mean to a veteran's monthly check, because I've watched both ends of that process up close. So when I tell you this bill bundles a good thing with a terribly bad thing? I'm not reading that off of a press release. I'm telling you, as someone who's done the job on both sides of it. The Take Care of America's Veterans Act bundles a genuinely good thing, the Major Richard Starr Act, letting combat injured veterans keep full retirement pay and disability compensation with a quiet offset. Changes that could cut future tinnitus and sleep apnea disability ratings for up to 1.5 million veterans, an estimated 57 billion in cuts over a decade. Veterans groups like DAV and Democrats, including Senator Blumenthal, have been blunt. Don't force veterans to fund other veterans' benefits. Pass the STAR Act on its own. The bill's backers said the offsets are needed to satisfy budget rules. Either way, poison pill isn't a talking point here. It's literally what advocacy groups are calling it. Those advocacy groups, again, are the Veterans of Foreign War, the DAV, the IAVA, and others. Segment 5, where is Mitch? And then there's Mitch McConnell, hospitalized since June 14th, over 3 weeks now. His office still hasn't said why. Police scanner audio reportedly showed CPR being performed at an address matching his home the day he was admitted. This week, several Republicans, Toon, Barrasso, commentator Scott Jennings, they said they'd spoken with him by phone, seemingly to push back on an online rumors that he was brain dead. That's not exactly reassuring on its own. An 84-year-old senator serving out his last term, and the public still doesn't know what happened to him or how he's actually doing. And I've been calling his office because I need to talk to him about this bill that I'm talking about him making sure that that poison pill part of it doesn't get enacted. But no answer. Now I'm running to sit on a fiscal court, not the United States Senate, but the principle's the same size no matter the office. If I'm elected, I've told folks, come to the meetings, bring your hardest question, I'll answer it. That's not a slogan, that's the job. When a sitting senator's own colleagues have to go on television to reassure people he's alive instead of his office just telling the truth, that's a failure of the basic contract elected officials owe the people who sent them there. Segment 6, the constitutional free zone. Last thing, and it's the one that's been sitting with me. Tom Hartman had a piece out this week that opens with him back in 1986, traveling with his kids. And they went on a trip to, well, East Germany and Germany. Now, while they were out there, he tells a personal story. He tells about how they got into what we call a gypsy cab, right? And in that gypsy cab, they were crossing into East Berlin with his teenage daughter, 1986, getting picked up by that young gypsy cab driver named Torsten, who spent the whole ride coaching them to lie to the Volkspolizei if they got stopped. Because in that country, back then, driving the wrong strangers around could get you hauled in. We all know the stories like this. He tells that story to set up this one. There's a roughly 100-mile band along U.S. borders, north and south, a federal regulation from 1953 that swallows entire states and cities like New York and Los Angeles. Even the libertarians at the Cato Institute, who are nobody's idea of open borders radicals, call it the Constitution free zone. and have mapped the checkpoints one by one. Hartman's example: a construction worker in DC gets waved over by park police for a minor traffic thing. Within a minute, ICE has surrounded his truck, asking everyone in the vehicle where they're from and whether they're here legally. 2 passengers get taken away. Nobody tells them where. Now, to be fair to the facts here, that zone isn't new and it isn't something Trump invented. It's a decades-old CBP regulation that's drawn criticism on the Republican and Democratic administrations alike. What's different now is the enforcement intensity, the funding. Hartman says it's staggering. Going to state and local police to help ICE work that zone and the atmosphere that it's creating. Now, y'all, I worked at USCIS from 2019 to 2020. So I've been inside the federal immigration system, not just reading about it. I know the difference between enforcement done by the book and enforcement that treats the Fourth Amendment as optional. And the Constitution isn't supposed to be optional. The Constitution doesn't come with an asterisk that says, except within 100 miles of a border. It's the highest law of this land, or it isn't. That's not a partisan statement. That's the oath I took when I joined the Navy in 1990. And it's the same oath that I would take again if Hardin County voters send me to the fiscal court. Now, I also grew up during the Red Scare. Probably plenty of viewers out there did too. We were told as kids and on up into adulthood explicitly that this is what life would look like. Neighbors afraid to talk, people hauled off without explanation, a permanent low hum of, keep quiet, you don't know who's listening. If the Soviets invaded, if the Reds won, it was the entire pitch of my whole childhood. That was supposed to be the thing so unthinkably un-American that we built a whole Cold War posture around preventing just that type of lifestyle. Nobody told us the version where it happens anyway. Not because of an invasion, not because communists took over, but because we elected a man with a documented megalomania problem and gave him the machinery of federal law enforcement to play with. That's the part that should stop everyone, regardless of the party you belong to or don't belong to. The threat we spent 50 years being warned about didn't need a foreign army. It just needed a ballot box and an administration willing to use the tools that were already sitting there waiting. Sunday morning in Memphis, Tennessee, 20-year-old Tyron Johnson was shot by the National Guard. Soldiers do not have body cameras like police should. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is investigating, TBI, but how will we get the truth when the military can shoot people on civilian streets without body cameras? Y'all, I've been deployed to countries where the military is on civilian streets 24/7. Those places were not places I wanted to take my family to visit. And yet, I take my family to Memphis for vacations all the time. I do not fear crime there. I've had plenty of good times in Memphis, on even Bill Street, with my family, my kids that are underage. And we go there for food and for music and for soccer, for basketball. I don't fear for violent crime there. And yet, our president has had troops in the street helping out ICE and patrolling with the police, supposedly, and without the police, since last year, the same time that everything's been going on in Minnesota and Chicago. So that's the split screen. Overseas, threats against allies and a ceasefire falling apart. At home, transparency promises unmet. An affordability bill still sitting unsigned, veterans getting a bill with strings attached, and a senator's health being managed like a state secret. None of these stories exist in isolation. They're all symptoms of the same thing, a government that talks about the public's business as if it belongs to somebody else. Now, y'all, I spent my whole adult life, Navy, VA, USCIS, public classroom, and now this campaign, believing in the same three things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness aren't just words in a document. We're all created equal under it. And the Constitution is the highest law of the land, full stop. Nothing I read this week honored any of that. That's why I'm running for magistrate, and that's why this episode was personal, right down to the marrow. Now, in honor of the fact that this is the day in history when at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, folks got to hear the Declaration of Independence read aloud on public squares across the 13 colonies, I'm going to read a portion that I read aloud tonight at the Hardin County State Fair. Both Democrats and Republicans together, we read this aloud right in front of our booths at the State Fair. I'm going to read the section that I read because you could read this exactly as a news commentary from our nation today. So buckle up, get your hearing aids turned up to where you can hear exactly what I'm saying, because it still has meaning today. This is part of the Declaration of Independence. We're about 5-6 pages in, but here we go. This is a part of it. You probably have never heard this unless you had a good teacher in school. We're talking about the King of England and why his despotism is so great that we have to break away from that nation, even violently. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration here, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands, meaning that he would not allow folks to come and migrate into places like Kentucky, because the English king didn't want us to have any land over here. But that's not how our ancestors felt. All right, back to it. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payments of their salaries. Sound familiar? He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent there and all over swarms of officers to harass our people and eat their food. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civilian powers. Sound familiar, Memphis? He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering means putting in your house large bodies of armed troops among us. So the king was forcing folks to let the soldiers come live in their house, rape their daughters, and eat their food. For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Sound familiar, Memphis? Sound familiar, Minnesota? For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Sound familiar, Spain? And the rest of the U.S., who's going to be losing sales of Kentucky products such as bourbon, soy, and other things to Spain? That's what our person has said. He's going to cut off trade with all parts of the world. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us overseas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing there an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same obsolete rules into these colonies, for taking away our government charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. So I read that part tonight. We had it in 7 parts. That was the 5th part. Grab yourself a full copy of the Declaration of Independence. Don't just stop there at that great part that I open with every night, that we hold these principles to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, and among these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No, the Declaration of Independence was much more direct and exact in its denunciation of the tyrannical behavior of the despot king of England and why we had to use violence when they came to stop us, and we had to create our own more perfect government. All right, y'all. I'm Spencer Keck, the educated hillbilly, and this has been the Hillbilly Think Tank. Come to a fiscal court meeting. Bring your hardest question. Whether I earn your vote or not, together we'll find an answer for it. I'll see you there. Keep thinking deeply, and remember, in Kentucky, united we stand and divided we fall. Y'all, it isn't just words on a flag. It's the glue that holds us together. Because if we love our neighbors as ourselves and recognize that, yes, we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, then we cannot be divided and we will not fall. Remember, everyone deployed overseas, and bless your corazón. That's Spanish for heart. I'm hoping you're having a great week. Come on out and see me at the Hardin County State Fair. I'll be there from 5 to 8:30 or 9 tomorrow. Love to see you. And get out, get active, get involved. This is your nation. It's not anyone else's, no matter what they might try to tell us. It is ours alone.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there. Because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. We don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man. And we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Now I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall there. Oh. The divide between heaven and earth, as tears turn to mirth, as we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I've reached the hollow where my ancestors roam.
All right. Give a quick shout out to Tom. Tom, I see Tom, you put some comments on there. Awesome. Ghost of John Brown. Totally agree. Memphis is a beautiful city. Media has an agenda when it comes to Memphis. Yep. Totally right. All right. So, y'all, hopefully you're having a great midweek. It's hump day. Let's all get out there and enjoy our freedom. Create more of it.
Beans shipping cross country in refrigerated trucks. And third, they take more cooked than modern bush beans. In the 50s and 60s, convenience became king, and TV did it. Soaking overnight, got made old-fashioned means it actually works. Your great-grandfather didn't grow scallop runners because they were tender. He grew them because when the bank foreclosed on farms across the